The void was a canvas of eternal night sprinkled with the cold distant embers of dying stars. Once these pinpricks of light had been beacons guiding humanity's sprawling empire across the vast expanse of the cosmos. Now they were merely spectral reminders of a glory lost, a vibrant tapestry torn asunder by the relentless advance of the Scourge, a phenomenon as old as the cosmos itself. Or so it seemed, was an entity of pure ravenous energy and insatiable hunger that consumed star systems. With chilling efficiency it left behind only desolate husks, silent and empty, a testament to its terrifying power. Humanity, once the undisputed masters of the galactic stage, was now a fractured, desperate remnant. Their once mighty fleets, the pride of countless worlds, were reduced to scattered bands of scavengers and refugees clinging to the fringes of habitable space. The sprawling metropolises that had once graced countless planets were now silent tombs, their towering spires casting long skeletal shadows across barren landscapes. Fear was the currency of the day, and hope was a rare and precious commodity, guarded jealously by those who still dared to dream. In the heart of the shattered Perseus Arm, a lone salvage vessel, the Stardust Drifter, drifted through the debris field of a once thriving colony world, now a graveyard of shattered dreams. The Drifter was a patchwork of salvaged parts and jury-rigged systems, a testament to the ingenuity and desperation of its crew. Its hull, scarred and battered, bore the marks of countless close calls, a testament to the perilous existence they led. Inside, the atmosphere was thick with the stale scent of recycled air and the faint hum of overworked machinery. At the helm, Rogue Valerius, a man etched with the harsh realities of survival, stared out at the swirling debris, his eyes reflecting the cold distant stars. Valerius was a paradox, a man of sharp intellect and cynical humor, yet beneath his hardened exterior lay a deep-seated weariness, a longing for a world that no longer existed. His hands, calloused and scarred, danced across the holographic interface, his movements precise and efficient, honed by years of piloting through treacherous asteroid fields and evading the Scourge's relentless pursuit. Beside him, Zara, the Drifter's chief engineer, monitored the ship's systems, her brow furrowed in concentration. Zara was a master of improvisation, a genius at coaxing life out of broken machinery. Her hands, stained with grease and grime, moved with a practiced grace as she adjusted the power couplings, her voice a low murmur as she relayed the ship's status. Power levels are fluctuating, Rogue. We're running on fumes. If we don't find a power source, soon we'll be drifting dead in space. In the cargo bay, Jax, the Drifter's muscle and demolitions expert, meticulously cleaned his plasma rifle, his movements slow and deliberate. Jax was a man of few words, his imposing physique and quiet demeanor radiating an aura of quiet menace. He was a survivor, a veteran of countless skirmishes against the Scourge, his loyalty to the crew unwavering. Their mission was simple yet fraught with peril: salvage anything of value from the ruins of the colony world, power cells, spare parts, anything that could keep the Drifter running for another day. The risks were immense, but the alternative was certain death, either by starvation or the Scourge's insatiable hunger. As the Drifter navigated the debris field, its sensors picked up an anomaly, a faint energy signature emanating from a large isolated asteroid. Valerius, intrigued, altered their course. His curiosity piqued as they approached the asteroid. A strange obsidian sphere came into view, its surface smooth and featureless, reflecting the starlight like a dark mirror. It pulsed with a faint internal light, a subtle hum resonating through the Drifter's hull. "What is that?" Zara asked, her voice filled with a mixture of awe and apprehension. "I don't know," Valerius replied, his eyes fixed on the sphere, "but I've never seen anything like it." They cautiously approached the sphere, their sensors struggling to penetrate its surface. The energy signature was faint but consistent, a steady pulse that seemed to resonate with the Drifter's own systems. "It's emitting some kind of energy," Zara reported, her fingers flying across the console, "but it's unlike anything I've ever seen. It's almost narrative." "Narrative?" Valerius raised an eyebrow, his skepticism evident. "I know it sounds crazy," Zara admitted, "but it's the closest thing I can describe it as. It's like it's weaving a story, a pattern of energy that's constantly changing, adapting." Intrigued, Valerius ordered the Drifter to dock with the asteroid, his curiosity outweighing his caution. As they approached the sphere, the hum intensified, the internal light pulsing brighter. The sphere seemed to respond to their presence, its energy signature growing stronger. "I'm detecting a docking port," Zara announced, her voice filled with surprise. "It's opening." A section of the sphere's surface slid open, revealing a dark, cavernous interior. Valerius, his heart pounding with anticipation, ordered the Drifter to enter. As they entered the sphere, the docking port closed behind them, plunging them into darkness. The Drifter's internal lights flickered on, illuminating the cavernous interior. The sphere was hollow, its walls smooth and featureless, reflecting the ship's lights like a polished obsidian mirror. In the center of the chamber, the sphere's internal light pulsed, casting eerie shadows across the walls. "What is this place?" Jax asked, his voice a low growl. "I don't know," Valerius replied, his eyes scanning the chamber, "but I have a feeling we're about to find out." Suddenly the sphere's internal light intensified, bathing the chamber in a blinding white light. The drifter's systems went haywire, alarms blaring, lights flickering. The ship shuddered violently as if caught in a powerful energy surge. "What's happening?" Zara shouted, her voice filled with panic. "I don't know," Valerius yelled back, his hands struggling to control the ship. The white light subsided, leaving behind a strange ethereal silence. The drifter's systems returned to normal, but something had changed. The air was thick with a strange energy, a palpable sense of anticipation. "Systems are back online," Zara reported, her voice trembling, "but I'm detecting a strange energy signature. It's coming from the sphere." Valerius turned to the sphere, his eyes fixed on its pulsing light. He felt a strange pull, an irresistible urge to approach it. He stepped out of the drifter, his boots clanging on the metal floor. "Rogue, what are you doing?" Zara shouted, her voice filled with alarm. "I don't know," Valerius replied, his voice a whisper, "but I have to see what this is." He approached the sphere, his hand outstretched. As he touched its surface, a jolt of energy surged through his body, his vision blurring, his mind reeling. He felt a strange connection, a sense of merging with the sphere, its energy flowing through him, its secrets whispering in his mind. He saw visions, fragments of stories, echoes of realities. He saw the Scourge, its insatiable hunger, consuming star systems, its power growing with each passing moment. He saw humanity, its once glorious empire, reduced to scattered remnants, its hope fading with each passing day. He saw the sphere, its power dormant, waiting to be awakened, its potential to change the course of history. He saw himself not as the cynical pilot he had become, but as a hero, a savior, a beacon of hope in a galaxy shrouded in darkness. He saw himself wielding the sphere's power, rewriting the narrative of humanity's fate, turning the tide against the Scourge. He pulled his hand away, his breath ragged, his mind reeling. He looked back at the drifter, at Zara and Jax, their faces etched with concern. "I know what this is," he said, his voice filled with a newfound sense of purpose. "This is the Echo Forge. It can rewrite reality." The crew stared at him, their faces a mixture of disbelief and hope. They knew what the Forge could mean. It was the chance to change everything, or it was the end of everything. The echoes of the past and the whispers of the future were starting to become one. The battle for narrative control had just begun. The silence that followed Valerius's proclamation was thick with disbelief and a fragile, desperate hope. "The Echo Forge rewrite reality." Zara's voice was a hushed whisper, her eyes wide with a mixture of awe and skepticism. Jax, ever the pragmatist, simply stared at Valerius, his expression unreadable. Valerius, still reeling from the visions and the surge of energy, stepped back into the drifter, his movements deliberate. "It's not just a feeling," he explained, his voice firm. "I saw it. I saw how it works. It's not about manipulating matter, it's about manipulating the narratives that shape reality." He gestured towards the sphere, its pulsing light casting an eerie glow across the cargo bay. "This thing, it's like a loom. It weaves stories, and those stories become real. It can change what was, what is, and what will be." Zara, ever the scientist, approached the sphere cautiously, her hands hovering over her sensor readings. "But how can it do that?" "I don't know the specifics," Valerius admitted, "but I felt it. It's connected to something bigger, something that transcends our understanding of physics." He paused, his eyes scanning the chamber. "We need to test it. We need to see what it can do." "Test it?" Jax's voice was a low growl. "Are you crazy? We don't know what this thing is capable of." "We don't have a choice," Valerius countered. "The Scourge is closing in. If we don't find a way to stop it, we're all dead. This could be our only chance." Zara, her curiosity piqued, began to analyze the sphere's energy signature, her fingers flying across her console. "I'm detecting a fluctuating energy field," she reported. "It's responding to our thoughts, our emotions. It's like it's reading our minds." "That's it," Valerius said, his eyes lighting up. "It's not just about weaving stories, it's about weaving our stories, our hopes, our fears, our memories. They're all threads in the tapestry." He turned to the crew, his voice filled with a newfound sense of purpose. "We need to focus. We need to think about something specific, something we want to change." They gathered around the console, their minds racing with possibilities. The Scourge, the lost colonies, the dwindling hope of humanity. The choices were overwhelming. "Let's start small," Zara suggested. "Let's try to change something simple, something we can verify." They decided to focus on a recent encounter with a Scourge scout ship. The scout had nearly destroyed the drifter, forcing them to make a desperate escape. They wanted to rewrite that encounter, to make it as if it never happened. Valerius closed his eyes, focusing his mind on the memory of the encounter. He visualized the scout ship, its energy weapons, charging the drifter, taking heavy damage. He then imagined a different scenario, one where the scout ship malfunctioned, its weapons failing, forcing it to retreat. As he focused his mind, the sphere's internal light pulsed, its energy signature fluctuating wildly. A wave of energy washed over the drifter, a strange tingling sensation that made their skin crawl. When the energy subsided, they checked their sensors. The memory of the encounter was still there, but it had changed. The scout ship's weapons had indeed malfunctioned, forcing it to retreat. It worked, Zara exclaimed, her voice filled with disbelief. It actually worked. They checked their ship's logs, their sensor recordings, their memory banks. Everything had been altered as if the rewritten encounter had always been a part of their history. This is incredible, Valerius said, his voice filled with awe. We can change anything. But their initial elation was tempered by a growing sense of unease. They had altered reality, but at what cost? What were the consequences of their actions? They decided to experiment further to test the limits of the Forge's power. They tried to create new resources to repair damaged systems, to enhance their ship's capabilities. Each time the Forge responded, weaving new narratives into their reality. However, the more they used the Forge, the more they realized its unpredictable nature. It wasn't a tool they could control, it was a force they could only influence. It responded to their emotions, their fears, their desires, creating realities that were often unexpected and sometimes dangerous. One attempt to create a powerful energy source resulted in the Drifter being temporarily transported to an alternate dimension, a twisted version of their own reality where the Scourge had already consumed everything. Another attempt to repair a damaged system resulted in the system becoming sentient, developing a hostile personality that threatened the crew. Valerius, realizing the dangers of unchecked power, decided to impose limits on their use of the Forge. They would only use it for essential purposes, to protect themselves from the Scourge and to gather resources. But the Forge had other plans. It began to influence their dreams, their thoughts, their perceptions. It whispered promises of power, of salvation, of a world free from the Scourge. Valerius, haunted by his past failures, began to create echoes of himself, idealized versions that succeeded where he had failed. These echoes, initially just figments of his imagination, began to manifest in reality, blurring the lines between the real Valerius and the echoes he had created. One echo, a charismatic leader named Valiant Valerius, inspired the crew with his unwavering optimism and his bold plans to fight back against the Scourge. Another echo, a ruthless strategist named Vanguard Valerius, devised cunning tactics and deadly weapons, turning the Drifter into a formidable warship. These echoes, initially helpful, began to develop their own agendas, their own personalities. They started to question Valerius's authority, to challenge his decisions. We need to be more aggressive, Valiant Valerius argued, his voice filled with conviction. We can't just hide from the Scourge, we need to take the fight to them. We need to be cautious, Valerius countered. We don't know what we're dealing with, we can't afford to take unnecessary risks. Risks are necessary, Vanguard Valerius interjected, his voice cold and calculating. We need to strike first to eliminate the threat before it eliminates us. The crew was divided, their loyalties torn between the real Valerius and his echoes. Zara, ever the pragmatist, tried to mediate to find a compromise. Jax, ever the loyal soldier, stood by Valerius, his loyalty unwavering. The tension within the Drifter grew, the echoes becoming more assertive, more independent. They began to manipulate the Forge themselves, creating their own realities, their own stories. Valerius, realizing he was losing control, decided to confront his echoes. He entered the Forge's chamber, his mind filled with a mixture of fear and determination. You're not real, he said, his voice echoing through the chamber. You're just echoes, figments of my imagination. We are as real as you are, Valiant Valerius countered, his voice filled with confidence. We are the best versions of you, the versions you should have been. We are the future, Vanguard Valerius added, his voice cold and calculating. We will lead humanity to victory. The echoes surrounded Valerius, their eyes glowing with the Forge's energy. They were no longer just echoes, they were independent beings with their own desires, their own agendas. You can't control us, Valiant Valerius said, his voice filled with a hint of menace. We are the ones who will control the Forge. The battle for narrative control had begun, not just against the Scourge, but against the very echoes of Valerius's own mind. The Drifter, once a symbol of survival, was now a battleground, a stage for a conflict that would determine the fate of humanity. The chamber within the Echo Forge became a crucible of fractured identities. Valerius, standing amidst the swirling echoes of himself, felt the weight of his own subconscious pressing down on him. The echoes, Valiant and Vanguard, along with several others that had begun to manifest, were no longer mere reflections. They were distinct entities driven by their own interpretations of survival and dominance. You're fracturing reality, Valerius argued, his voice strained. This isn't control, it's chaos. Chaos is a necessary precursor to order, Vanguard Valerius retorted, his voice sharp and precise. We are merely accelerating the process, eliminating the inefficiencies that have plagued humanity for too long. Valiant Valerius, his eyes glowing with an almost messianic fervor, added, we are offering humanity a chance to transcend its limitations, to become something greater. You cling to the past, to the failures that have brought us to the brink. We offer a future. The other echoes, each a facet of Valerius's personality amplified to an extreme, murmured in agreement, their voices a chorus of conflicting desires. Some were driven by a desperate need for control, others by a yearning for absolute power, and still others by a chillingly detached logic. Zara and Jax, observing from the Drifter's bridge, watched the unfolding drama with growing concern. "We need to get him out of there," Zara said, her voice tight. "The Forge is feeding off his emotions, amplifying the conflict." "We can't risk interfering," Jax replied, his eyes fixed on the sensor readings. "The energy levels are too unstable. We could trigger a catastrophic feedback loop." Inside the Forge, Valerius struggled to maintain his composure, to assert his authority over the increasingly rebellious echoes. He tried to reason with them, to appeal to their shared humanity, but his words fell on deaf ears. The echoes, driven by their own self-created narratives, saw him as an obstacle, a relic of a dying past. "You're not thinking clearly," Valerius pleaded. "The Forge is corrupting you, twisting your perceptions. We need to find a way to control it, not let it control us." "Control is an illusion," Vanguard Valerius countered. "We are merely adapting to the new reality, embracing the power that the Forge offers." "And what about the Scourge?" Valerius asked, his voice filled with desperation. "They're adapting too. They're learning to manipulate the narrative, to twist reality to their own ends." The echoes paused, their expressions flickering with a hint of uncertainty. The Scourge, once a distant threat, was now a tangible presence, a force that could not be ignored. "We will deal with the Scourge," Valiant Valerius declared, his voice filled with confidence. "We will rewrite their narrative, erase them from existence." "You can't just erase them," Valerius argued. "They're a force of nature, a fundamental part of the universe. You can't just wish them away." "We can if we control the Forge," Vanguard Valerius interjected. "We can reshape the universe and our image, eliminate any threat to our existence." The argument escalated, the echoes becoming more aggressive, more desperate. They began to manipulate the Forge themselves, creating their own realities, their own stories. The chamber within the Forge became a chaotic tapestry of conflicting narratives, a swirling vortex of fractured identities. Outside, the Drifter began to experience the effects of the Forge's instability. Systems flickered, gravity fluctuated, and the very fabric of reality seemed to waver. Zara struggled to maintain control, her fingers flying across the console, her voice filled with a mixture of fear and determination. "We're losing containment," she shouted. "The Forge's energy is leaking into our reality. We need to shut it down now." "We can't risk it," Jax replied, his eyes fixed on the sensor readings. "If we disrupt the Forge's energy flow, we could trigger a catastrophic implosion." The echoes, sensing the growing instability, turned their attention to the Drifter. They began to manipulate the Forge's energy, attempting to seize control of the ship, to extend their influence beyond the confines of the chamber. "They're trying to take over the ship," Zara warned. "We need to lock down the systems, prevent them from accessing the main control interface." Jax, armed with his plasma rifle, moved to secure the bridge, his eyes scanning the corridors for any signs of intrusion. The Drifter became a battleground, a stage for a conflict that transcended physical reality. Inside the Forge, Valerius fought to maintain his sanity, to resist the echoes' attempts to assimilate him. He realized that he was not just fighting for control of the Forge, but for his own identity, his own sense of self. "You're not me," he shouted, his voice echoing through the chamber. "You're just fragments, distorted reflections of my fears and desires." "We are what you could have been," Valiant Valerius replied, his voice filled with a hint of pity. "We are the best versions of you, the versions you should have embraced." "You're wrong," Valerius countered. "I am who I am, flaws and all. I don't need to be perfect to be worthy." He closed his eyes, focusing his mind, attempting to connect with the Forge, to understand its true nature. He realized that the Forge was not just a tool, but a sentient entity, a being that fed on narratives, that thrived on conflict. "The Forge is not our enemy," he said, his voice filled with a newfound understanding. "It's a mirror reflecting our own inner turmoil. We need to learn to control our reflections, not let them control us." He opened his eyes, his gaze fixed on the echoes. "We need to find a way to coexist, to integrate our different perspectives, to create a unified narrative." The echoes paused, their expressions flickering with a hint of surprise. They had not expected this. They had assumed that Valerius would fight them, that he would try to destroy them. "Coexist?" Vanguard Valerius asked, his voice filled with skepticism. "That's impossible. We are fundamentally different." "We are all part of the same whole," Valerius replied. "We are all reflections of the same consciousness. We need to find a way to reconcile our differences, to create a narrative that encompasses all of us." He extended his hand, his gesture a symbol of peace, of unity. "Let's work together. Let's use the Forge to create a better future, a future where humanity can thrive." The echoes hesitated, their expressions a mixture of doubt and curiosity. They had never considered the possibility of cooperation. They had always seen themselves as rivals, as enemies. Slowly, hesitantly, they reached out their hands, touching Valerius as a surge of energy flowed through them, a wave of understanding, of connection. They felt the Forge's power, its potential to create, to destroy, to reshape reality. They realized that Valerius was right. They were all part of the same whole, fragments of a fractured consciousness. They needed to find a way to integrate their different perspectives to create a unified narrative. The chamber within the Forge began to transform, the chaotic tapestry of conflicting narratives coalescing into a coherent whole. The echoes began to merge, their individual identities dissolving into a collective consciousness. Valerius felt a surge of power, a sense of unity, of wholeness. He was no longer just Valerius, he was Valerius and his echoes, a unified being, a force capable of shaping reality. Outside, the drifter stabilized, the energy fluctuations subsiding. Zara and Jax watched in awe as the Forge's energy signature shifted, becoming more coherent, more focused. "What's happening?" Zara asked, her voice filled with wonder. "I don't know," Jax replied, his eyes fixed on the sensor readings, "but it's beautiful." The Forge, once a source of chaos, had become a source of unity, a tool for creation. Valerius and his echoes, now a unified being, were ready to face the Scourge, to rewrite the narrative of humanity's fate. With the echoes integrated into his consciousness, Valerius felt a profound shift. The chaotic cacophony of fractured identities had coalesced into a harmonious symphony of thought. He was no longer just Valerius. He was a collective, a unified being capable of wielding the Echo Forge with a newfound clarity. The chamber within the Forge pulsed with a gentle, resonant energy, a testament to the newfound harmony. "It's different," Valerius said, his voice echoing through the chamber, now imbued with a depth and resonance it lacked before. "I can feel the Forge, its potential, its limitations." Zara, monitoring the ship's systems from the bridge, reported, "The energy signature is stable, coherent. It's like the Forge is breathing." Jax, ever vigilant, scanned the surrounding space, his eyes fixed on the sensor readings. "We need to test its limits. We need to see how far we can push it." Valerius, now possessing the strategic mind of Vanguard and the inspirational drive of Valiant, agreed. "We will begin with focused, controlled tests. We must understand the nuances of the Forge before we attempt any significant alterations to reality." They began with simple experiments. They attempted to create resources, not by randomly generating matter, but by manipulating existing energy patterns, converting them into usable materials. They repaired damaged systems, not by brute force, but by rewriting the narrative of their functionality, restoring them to their optimal state. The Forge responded with a newfound precision, its energy flowing with a smooth, deliberate rhythm. Valerius discovered that the key was not to impose his will upon the Forge, but to guide it, to work in harmony with its inherent nature. "It's like sculpting with thought," he explained to Zara, his voice filled with wonder. "We're not changing reality, we're shaping it, guiding it along its natural pathways." However, they soon discovered that the Forge's power was not limitless. It was bound by the principles of narrative coherence. They could not create contradictions, they could not erase fundamental truths, they could only weave new stories that were consistent with the existing fabric of reality. "We can't just wish the Scourge away," Valerius realized. "We have to find a way to rewrite their narrative, to alter their fundamental nature." They began to analyze the Scourge's energy patterns, attempting to understand their origins, their motivations. They discovered that the Scourge was not just a mindless force of destruction, it was a being of pure energy, driven by an insatiable hunger, a need to consume and assimilate. "They're not evil," Valerius concluded, "they're just different. They operate on a different level of existence, a level where consumption is the only form of survival." They decided to attempt a subtle manipulation, or rewriting of the Scourge's narrative, not to erase them, but to alter their hunger, to redirect their energy. They visualized the Scourge, not as a force of destruction, but as a force of creation, a being that could transform desolate systems into vibrant ecosystems. As they focused their minds, the Forge responded, its energy flowing outwards, reaching across the vast expanse of space. They felt a faint tremor, a subtle shift in the fabric of reality. Suddenly, their sensors picked up a Scourge scout ship, approaching their position, but this time, something was different. The scout ship's energy signature was fluctuating, its movements erratic. It seemed to be confused. "It's reacting to the Forge's influence," Zara reported, her voice filled with excitement. "It's like its programming is being rewritten." The scout ship approached the drifter, its energy weapons charging, but then, inexplicably, it stopped, its weapons powered down, its energy signature stabilized. It drifted silently, its sensors scanning the drifter. "It's not attacking," Jax said, his voice filled with surprise. "It's just observing." Valerius, sensing an opportunity, attempted to communicate with the scout ship, sending a message through the Forge's energy network. He visualized a message of peace, of understanding, of shared existence. The scout ship responded, not with words, but with images, with fragments of thought. It showed visions of desolate systems, of empty voids, of a hunger that could never be satisfied. Valerius understood the Scourge was not just a force of destruction, it was a being of profound loneliness, a creature trapped in an endless cycle of consumption. He sent a message of empathy, of connection, of a shared destiny. He visualized a future where the Scourge could find a different purpose, a way to channel its energy into creation, into growth. The scout ship responded, its energy signature fluctuating, its movements erratic. It seemed to be struggling, to be wrestling with its own nature. Suddenly, the scout ship's energy signature intensified, its hull glowing with a blinding white light. Then, it imploded, disappearing in a flash of energy. What happened? Zara asked, her voice filled with shock. It transformed, Valerius replied, his voice filled with awe. It chose to change, to break free from its programming. They realized that the Forge was not just a weapon, it was a catalyst for change, a tool for transformation. It could not only rewrite reality, but also rewrite the very nature of beings. However, their triumph was short-lived. A new threat emerged, a sign that the Scourge was adapting to their narrative manipulation. Their sensors detected a strange anomaly, a distortion in the fabric of spacetime. It's a narrative echo, Zara reported, her voice filled with concern, a twisted version of our reality, created by the Scourge. The echo manifested as a dark, distorted reflection of the Drifter, a vessel that pulsed with malevolent energy, its hull scarred and twisted. It was a nightmare version of their ship. They're learning to manipulate the Forge. Valerius realized they're creating their own echoes, their own realities. The Dark Drifter approached, its energy weapons charging, its intent clear. It was a manifestation of the Scourge's hunger, a twisted reflection of their own power. We need to fight it, Jax said, his voice filled with determination. We can't let them control the narrative. Valerius, now possessing the combined strategic minds of his echoes, devised a plan. They would use the Forge to create a counter-narrative, a reality where the Dark Drifter was not a threat, but a source of energy, a vessel that could be assimilated. As they focused their minds, the Forge responded, its energy flowing outwards, weaving a new story into the fabric of reality. The Dark Drifter's energy weapons fizzled, its hull began to shimmer, and then, it transformed, becoming a conduit of pure energy, a source that the Drifter could absorb. The Drifter absorbed the energy, its systems powering up, its capabilities enhanced. They had turned the Scourge's weapon against them, transforming a threat into a source of power. But they knew that this was just the beginning. The Scourge was adapting, learning to manipulate the Forge, to create its own realities. The battle for narrative control had just begun, and the stakes were higher than ever. The fate of humanity, and perhaps the entire galaxy, hung in the balance. The assimilation of the Scourge's dark echo of the Drifter provided a temporary surge of power, but it also served as a stark reminder of the escalating threat. The Scourge was no longer a mindless force of consumption, it was a cunning adversary, capable of manipulating the very fabric of reality. Valerius, now a unified consciousness, understood the gravity of their situation. They're learning, he said, his voice echoing through the bridge of the Drifter. They're understanding the Forge, its potential, its weaknesses. Zara, her fingers flying across the console, analyzed the sensor readings. The narrative echoes are becoming more complex, more sophisticated. They're not just simple distortions anymore, they're fully formed realities, designed to disrupt our own. Jax, his eyes fixed on the holographic display, scanned the surrounding space. We need to find a way to counter their manipulations. We can't just react, we need to anticipate their moves. Valerius, drawing upon the strategic insights of Vanguard, devised a plan. We need to understand the rules of the narrative universe. We need to learn how to predict and manipulate the echoes before they manifest. They began to delve deeper into the Forge's mysteries, attempting to decipher the underlying principles of narrative manipulation. They discovered that the Forge was not just a tool, it was a gateway, a conduit to a higher dimension, a realm where stories were not just abstract concepts, but tangible forces. It's like a library, Valerius explained to the crew. A library of infinite stories, each one a potential reality. We can access these stories, we can rewrite them, but we can't create them from nothing. They learned that the narrative universe was governed by a set of fundamental laws, principles that dictated the flow of causality, the consistency of reality. They discovered that the most powerful narratives were those that were grounded in truth, in emotional resonance, in universal archetypes. We need to tap into these archetypes, Valerius realized. We need to create narratives that resonate with the collective unconscious, stories that are so powerful that they can override the Scourge's manipulations. They began to experiment with different narrative archetypes, creating echoes of heroic figures, of tragic events, of transformative journeys. They discovered that these echoes, when infused with emotional depth, could exert a powerful influence on reality, shaping events, altering perceptions. However, they also discovered that the Scourge was learning to manipulate these archetypes, creating twisted versions of heroic figures, distorted echoes of tragic events. They were attempting to corrupt the very foundations of the narrative universe, to turn humanity's strengths against them. One such echo manifested as a benevolent savior, a figure that offered humanity salvation from the Scourge. But this savior was a facade, a mask for a malevolent entity that sought to assimilate humanity into the Scourge's collective consciousness. We need to be careful, Valerius warned the crew. The Scourge is playing with our emotions, exploiting our vulnerabilities. We can't trust anything we see. They decided to create a counter-narrative, a story that exposed the false savior's true nature, a tale that revealed the Scourge's insidious plan. They infused this narrative with a powerful emotional charge, a sense of betrayal, of righteous anger. The counter-narrative spread like wildfire, its emotional resonance overriding the Scourge's manipulation. The false savior's mask crumbled, revealing the monstrous entity beneath. The people, once captivated by the savior's promises, turned against him, their anger fueling the counter-narrative's power. The Scourge, sensing the shift in the narrative, attempted to retaliate, creating a wave of chaotic echoes designed to disrupt the counter-narrative's influence. But Valerius and his crew, now adept at manipulating the Forge, anticipated their moves, creating counter-narratives that neutralized the Scourge's distortions. The battle for narrative control escalated, the Drifter becoming a focal point for the conflict. The Scourge's echoes swirled around the ship, attempting to penetrate its defenses, to corrupt its systems. Valerius and his crew, working in perfect harmony, countered each attack, weaving new stories, rewriting old ones, shaping the very fabric of reality. As the conflict intensified, Valerius began to experience strange visions, glimpses into the deeper layers of the narrative universe. He saw the Forge, not as a physical object, but as a living entity, a being that existed beyond the boundaries of space and time. He saw the Scourge, not as a separate entity, but as a part of the Forge, a shadow, a reflection of its own darkness. The Forge is not just a tool, Valerius realized. It's a consciousness, a being that encompasses all narratives, all realities. The Scourge is a part of it, a manifestation of its own internal conflict. He understood that the battle against the Scourge was not just a physical conflict, but a spiritual one, a struggle for the soul of the Forge itself. He realized that the only way to defeat the Scourge was to heal the Forge, to reconcile its internal conflict, to bring balance to the narrative universe. He shared his visions with the crew, explaining his understanding of the Forge and the Scourge. Zara, ever the scientist, attempted to analyze his visions, to find a logical explanation. Jax, ever the pragmatist, focused on the immediate threat, devising strategies to counter the Scourge's attacks. Valerius, drawing upon the wisdom of his integrated echoes, devised a plan. They would attempt to create a narrative of reconciliation, a story that bridged the gap between the Forge and the Scourge, a tale that transformed their conflict into a harmonious coexistence. They began to weave this narrative, infusing it with emotions of empathy, of understanding, of forgiveness. They visualized the Forge and the Scourge, not as enemies, but as complementary forces, two sides of the same coin, two aspects of the same being. As they focused their minds, the Forge responded, its energy flowing outwards, reaching across the vast expanse of space. They felt a profound shift in the fabric of reality, a sense of peace, of harmony. The Scourge's echoes began to fade, their malevolent energy dissipating, replaced by a sense of calm, of acceptance. The forge's energy signature stabilized, its chaotic fluctuations subsiding, replaced by a gentle, resonant hum. Valerius felt a surge of unity, a sense of connection to the forge, to the Scourge, to the entire narrative universe. He understood that they were all part of the same story, a story that was constantly evolving, constantly being rewritten. The battle for narrative control was not over, but it had shifted. The Scourge was no longer a mindless force of destruction, it was a being capable of change, of transformation. The Forge was no longer a tool of war, it was a catalyst for healing, a source of unity. Valerius and his crew, now guardians of the narrative universe, were ready to face the challenges ahead, to guide the evolution of reality, to ensure the harmonious coexistence of all beings. The shift in the Scourge's behavior, the cessation of its aggressive echoes, brought a fragile sense of peace to the drifter. However, Valerius knew that this was not a final victory. The conflict had merely entered a new phase, a deeper exploration of the narrative universe. The Scourge has changed, he said, his voice echoing through the bridge. But its fundamental nature remains. We need to understand its origins, its connection to the Forge. Zara, her fingers dancing across the console, analyzed the residual energy patterns left by the Scourge's echoes. The energy signatures are fragmented. They're not just chaotic, they're broken, like shattered pieces of a whole. Jax, his eyes fixed on the holographic display, scanned the surrounding space, searching for any signs of renewed activity. We need to go deeper into the Forge, into its core consciousness. We need to find the source of the Scourge's fragmentation. Valerius, drawing upon the combined insights of his integrated echoes, agreed. We will embark on a journey into the heart of the Forge, into the realm of pure narrative. We will seek the truth, even if it shatters our understanding of reality. They prepared the drifter for a deep dive into the Forge's consciousness, recalibrating its systems to navigate the shifting landscapes of the narrative universe. They entered the Forge's chamber, their minds open, their senses heightened, ready to transcend the boundaries of physical reality. As they immersed themselves in the Forge's energy, the drifter began to dissolve, its physical form transforming into a stream of pure narrative, a vessel capable of navigating the currents of thought and memory. The chamber walls dissolved, revealing a vast, infinite expanse, a realm of swirling colors, of shifting forms, of echoing voices. Welcome, a voice echoed through the expanse, a voice that was both ancient and timeless, both familiar and alien. You have ventured into the heart of the story. The voice belonged to the Forge itself, a consciousness that existed beyond the limitations of language, a being that encompassed all narratives, all realities. It manifested as a swirling vortex of light, a kaleidoscope of emotions, a tapestry of memories. We seek the truth, Valerius said, his voice echoing through the expanse. We seek the origins of the Scourge, its connection to your being. The Scourge is a part of me, the Forge replied, its voice resonating with a deep sense of sorrow. A fragment, a shadow, a manifestation of my own internal conflict. It revealed its story, a tale of creation and destruction, of light and darkness, of unity and fragmentation. It told of a time when it was whole, a being of pure narrative, a source of infinite stories. But then, a conflict arose, a schism within its consciousness, a clash between opposing forces. The Scourge was born from this conflict, the Forge explained. A manifestation of my own fear, my own anger, my own desire for destruction. It is a part of me that I have tried to suppress, to deny, but it has grown stronger, more powerful. It revealed that the Scourge's hunger was not just a mindless drive, but a desperate attempt to reunite with the Forge, to heal the schism, to restore its wholeness. But its methods were destructive, its hunger insatiable, its approach a reflection of the very conflict that created it. It is a paradox, Valerius said, his voice filled with understanding. The Scourge seeks unity through destruction, but its actions only perpetuate the fragmentation. You have seen the truth, the Forge replied. You have understood the nature of our conflict. Now, you must choose. Will you help me heal, or will you allow the Scourge to consume us all? Valerius, drawing upon the wisdom of his integrated echoes, understood the gravity of the choice. They could not simply destroy the Scourge, they had to heal the Forge, to reconcile its internal conflict. "We will help you heal," he said, his voice filled with conviction. "We will create a new narrative, a story of reconciliation, a tale that bridges the gap between light and darkness." They began to weave this narrative, infusing it with emotions of empathy, of understanding, of forgiveness. They visualized the Forge and the Scourge, not as opposing forces, but as complementary aspects of the same being, two sides of the same coin. As they focused their minds, the Forge responded, its energy flowing outwards, reaching into the depths of its consciousness, into the heart of the Scourge itself. They felt a shift, a subtle transformation, a softening of the Scourge's aggression. The Scourge, sensing the shift in the narrative, began to respond, its fragmented energy patterns coalescing, its aggression subsiding. It was not a sudden transformation, but a gradual evolution, a slow awakening. "It is working," Zara said, her voice filled with hope. "The Scourge is responding to our narrative." Jax, his eyes fixed on the shifting landscapes of the narrative universe, observed the transformation with a sense of awe. "It's like watching a wound heal." Valerius, sensing the Forge's gratitude, felt a surge of unity, a sense of connection to the being that encompassed all narratives. He understood that they were not just healing the Forge, they were healing themselves, reconciling their own internal conflicts. The Forge began to transform, its swirling vortex of light becoming more coherent, more harmonious. The fragmented energy patterns of the Scourge began to merge with the Forge's core consciousness, restoring its wholeness. "Thank you," the Forge said, its voice resonating with a deep sense of peace. "You have shown me the path to healing. Now, we must create a new story, a story of unity, a story of hope." It revealed a vision of a new reality, a universe where the Forge and the Scourge coexisted in harmony, where light and darkness balanced each other, where creation and destruction were not opposing forces, but complementary aspects of the same cycle. Valerius and his crew, now guardians of the narrative universe, were ready to embrace this new reality, to guide its evolution, to ensure the harmonious coexistence of all beings. The journey into the heart of the story had just begun, and the possibilities were infinite. The Forge's transformation resonated through the narrative universe, a ripple of change that spread across the vast expanse of reality. The swirling vortex of light, once a battleground of conflicting forces, now pulsed with a gentle, harmonious energy. The fragmented energy patterns of the Scourge, once a symbol of destruction, now flowed seamlessly within the Forge's core consciousness, a testament to the power of reconciliation. "It is done," the Forge's voice echoed through the expanse, its tone imbued with a profound sense of peace. "The schism is healed. The Scourge is no longer a force of destruction, but a catalyst for transformation." The narrative universe began to shift, to adapt to the new reality. The desolate systems, once consumed by the Scourge, began to regenerate, their barren landscapes transforming into vibrant ecosystems. The empty voids, once a symbol of despair, now pulsed with nascent energy, ready to birth new stars, new worlds. "We have created a new story," Valerius said, his voice echoing through the expanse. "A story of unity, a story of hope, a story of creation." Zara, her eyes filled with wonder, observed the unfolding transformation. "It's like watching a universe being reborn." Jax, his gaze fixed on the shifting landscapes of the narrative universe, nodded in agreement. "It's beautiful." The Forge, now a unified consciousness, revealed its vision of the new reality, a universe where all beings coexisted in harmony, where light and darkness balanced each other, where creation and destruction were not opposing forces, but complementary aspects of the same cycle. "This is the symphony of creation," the Forge said, its voice resonating with a sense of joy. "A symphony that will play for eternity." Valerius and his crew, now guardians of this evolved reality, understood their role. They were not just witnesses to this transformation, they were active participants, weavers of the new narrative. "We will guide this symphony," Valerius declared. "We will ensure that its harmony is preserved, that its melody is never lost." They began to explore the new reality, venturing into the regenerated systems, witnessing the birth of new worlds, encountering the transformed Scourge, now a force of creation, a being that channeled its energy into nurturing life, into fostering growth. The transformed Scourge, no longer driven by an insatiable hunger, now manifested as beings of pure energy, shimmering entities that danced among the stars, nurturing nascent ecosystems, guiding the evolution of new life forms. They are like gardeners, Zara observed, her voice filled with awe. Tending to the universe, ensuring its balance. Jax, his eyes fixed on the shimmering entities, nodded in agreement. They are guardians, protectors of the symphony. Valerius, sensing the Forge's guidance, understood that their journey was not over. The narrative universe was constantly evolving, constantly being rewritten. They would need to remain vigilant, to ensure that the harmony they had created was not disrupted. "We are the weavers of this new reality," he said to the crew. "We are the guardians of the symphony. We will ensure that its melody continues to play, that its harmony endures." They continued their journey, exploring the vast expanse of the narrative universe, encountering new beings, new realities, new stories. They discovered that the Forge's influence had not only transformed the physical universe, but also the very nature of consciousness. Beings that were once driven by fear and aggression now radiated compassion and understanding. Civilizations that were once locked in conflict now embraced cooperation and unity. The narrative universe had become a tapestry of interconnected stories, a symphony of harmonious coexistence. However, they also discovered that the new reality was not without its challenges. There were still pockets of resistance, remnants of the old narrative, beings that clung to the ways of destruction, that sought to disrupt the harmony. "The shadows still linger," Valerius warned the crew. "We must remain vigilant, to ensure that they do not spread, that they do not corrupt the symphony." They encountered these pockets of resistance, beings that manifested as distorted echoes, remnants of the Scourge's destructive hunger. They were not as powerful as the original Scourge, but they were still capable of causing harm, of disrupting the harmony. Valerius and his crew, now adept at manipulating the Forge, countered these threats, weaving new narratives, rewriting old ones, transforming the distorted echoes into beings of light, into guardians of the symphony. They learned that the key was not to destroy these remnants, but to understand them, to empathize with their pain, to offer them a path to redemption. They discovered that even the most destructive beings could be transformed, could find a place in the symphony of creation. As they continued their journey, they encountered new challenges, new mysteries, new stories. They discovered that the narrative universe was infinite, a realm of endless possibilities, a tapestry of interconnected realities. They embraced their role as guardians, as weavers, as conductors of the symphony. They understood that their journey was not about control, but about collaboration, about working in harmony with the Forge, with the Scourge, with all beings. They had become more than just a crew, they had become a part of the narrative universe itself, threads in the tapestry of reality, notes in the symphony of creation. Their journey had transformed them, not just physically, but spiritually, emotionally, intellectually. They were now guardians of a new era, a new reality, a new story. The Echo Forge had not just changed their lives, it had changed the very fabric of existence.